Hi, I'm JJ, and you're listening to Microphone Munchies. Food for thought, they'll get you hungry for more. So, I guess it's Friday now, so happy Friday, everyone. Sorry for not putting out a podcast yesterday. Half of me forgot, half of me went to sleep, but here we are. We're putting in the work. UTG, understand the grind. So, first things first, before I get into today, I have to say thank you, Norman Powell, for all your service to the Toronto Raptors, and best of luck on your next team. Um, I'm not really too much of a diehard basketball fan. Of course, I support the Raptors because I live in Toronto, but it's all right. I mean, basketball is great. There are a lot of great storylines. Sports is wonderful. And today I kind of want to talk a little bit about an idea from Fred Van Vleet. He talks about this a lot, this concept of betting on yourself. And that's what today's episode is going to be about. I want to talk about value, and I want to talk about this idea of betting on yourself, because it's a concept that, as I'm getting older now, I'm trying to understand and apply more and more in my life. And it's something that's really changed how I've seen certain things. But first, I want to talk a little bit about value. So let's get into it. The first things first is this concept of value. What is something worth, right? Within the last year, especially since COVID-19, especially since we've seen all these crazy things that have happened in the stock market, there is a constant conversation online, and maybe a conversation in your life, about what's worth it, what's worth what. If we think about things like, I don't know, something as simple as money, right? What is money even? Money is a representation of something, right? Money is an idea. It, on its own, even something like gold, if nobody wants your gold, it's not worth anything. Something's only worth something because people believe that it's worth something, or other people believe that it's worth something. And so this concept of value is interesting because fundamentally, and these are my own opinions, I might be wrong, fundamentally, value is arbitrary. There is no real reason why anything is worth what it's worth. We think it's worth something, and so we believe it. For example, there's a study about how when two people, when you have, let's say, two different glasses of wine, and it's the same wine, but when you tell someone that one of them is more expensive, they're going to think that the expensive one tastes better, because psychologically, we like to think that expensive things means quality. And not always. A lot of these concepts of quality, authenticity, realness, these are all subjective. These are all based on a variety of different factors. It could be things like exclusivity. It could be things like marketing. Could be narrative, like stories and stuff. It could be a variety of things. So I'm thinking about all this because recently, Toronto, we can kind of like shop in person again. And I've noticed that a lot of people have been going to stores in person, even though we can still buy things online. And I'm no stranger to this. I've done the same thing. I recently bought this Casio watch. It's not that fancy. It's not really that expensive. And yet I was thinking about it, like, why do people spend money on, like, even for myself, right? Like do I really need a watch in this day and age? I mean, I have a phone. Why do I need to look at the time? I can justify it, of course. I mean, the biggest expense that I spend now is on food. And that's something I'm trying to cut back on. But I always justify it. I always tell myself, you know what? Cooking will take too long, or I want to support small businesses. And there's always a way to rationalize. The same way that when I bought this watch, I was thinking, oh, I would use it for traveling in the future. It's cheap enough that if I lost it or if someone took it, I wouldn't cry, and blah 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 blah. And so I was thinking about things like, why do people spend so much money on brand names like Balenciaga, Gucci, like fancy cars and stuff? I mean, personally, I think that the materials are, obviously there is a difference in terms of what kind of materials you use, what kind of workmanship, craftsmanship, but and logistics and supply chains and things like that. But to be honest, a lot of the money that you pay when you're buying something isn't really, it's almost never, well, it should be never, it never should be the same amount of money it takes to make. Otherwise, the company will not make any profits. But oftentimes when we buy something that's a brand name, like Nike or Adidas or whatever, the amount of money that we pay is much more, incredibly more, a lot more than what it's actually, how much it costs to produce, how much it costs to make. But why do we do it? And so it's interesting because I think of this and then I extrapolate this to other areas of my life. For example, why do I bother making these podcasts? What's it worth? All of these concepts, like why am I trying to read more books? Why am I trying to learn languages? And this might apply in your life too. Maybe, especially if you've been in lockdown for so long, it's very easy to be honest, life is sometimes it's kind of boring. I mean, things are always happening. Everyone always says it's the end of the world. And then everyone also always says it's the ultimate opportunity. And in between, day to day, we go to work or we try to get a job or we study or we're doing whatever we're doing. And it's kind of boring. I mean, maybe this is my personal experience only, but life is fairly mundane. Most of the time, it's pretty normal. We eat, we sleep, we go to the toilet, we shower, I hope, these normal things. And this concept, if value is arbitrary, then how do I know, or how do we know whether anything we do is meaningful? And the answer to that, I think, is you decide. You decide how much something is worth. And when you recognize that, when it's up to you to decide and not anybody else, I think my hypothesis is that life will become more interesting because you will realize that you have a lot more control, not in terms of life, but you have a lot more agency, a lot more freedom for yourself to decide, you know what? For example, this cup. For me, it's worth a lot. It's my favorite cup because it's got Arsenal on it, right? And to be honest, it doesn't take a lot to make, but I'm trying to think of even my personal I can't English today. Even my personal possessions. I only want to buy things that I really care about, things that I really love, things that mean something to me. Either there's a story behind it or some sort of sentimental value. And at least personally, it just makes it more fun because now I try my best not to spend on things that I only like. It's either I really love it or I'm not going to spend money on it. And I don't know. It's an interesting one. I was talking with some friends, but value is also to do with things like challenge. For example, imagine if you're listening to this and you have infinite money, then every time you spend money on something, whether it's an experience, whether it's an item, it won't mean very much, right? I mean, think back to when you were a kid. When you were a kid, when you spend the money that you earned or saved from your allowance or from a job or whatever, and you bought something very cheap, like, I bought like candy or a DVD or a Game Boy game, it was so meaningful. It was so amazing because you worked so hard for that money. But if you have infinite money, then every time you spend money, it doesn't mean anything, right? So it's interesting. I've noticed that in my own life. Like before, when I bought recently I bought this shoes, like Adidas, like Stan Smith, like the shoe, and it was 50% off. And like I remember the first time I ever bought this shoe, I was so excited. I waited 6 months. I saved up money, and this was when I was younger, and it felt like a big deal. And now it's just another shoe, and it's cheaper. It's at a cheaper price, and it was just whatever. And I realized that it is a blessing sometimes. I think this is the point. It's a blessing sometimes when you, right now in your life, if you're experiencing like challenges or struggling for things, in a weird way, and this might be from a place of privilege, in a weird way, it is a blessing because life is more fun like that. If you have cousins or if you have younger siblings, you know how it feels. When you're playing a game with your younger sibling or a cousin and you know that you're going to win, it's not fun But when you're playing someone, like when you're challenging against someone who's your level or better, especially if they're a little bit better than you, and then you beat them, that is amazing. You get such a kick, such a thrill. And so I encourage all of you, look at what you value in your life and see whether or not it's really up to you. See whether or not it's really what you value or if it's what other people value. So for example, I value things like making stuff. I love making stuff. I don't know if it's going to make me any more money. Not yet, hopefully, maybe. But it's just fun. I mean, I just find that in general, I'm much happier when I'm creating than when I'm consuming. And of course, there's a balance. If I'm only creating stuff, then I get really burned out. But there is a balance. And so I encourage you to look at that in your own life. What are the things you value? Maybe there are certain things you undervalue. For example, your health, maybe. And maybe there are things you overvalue. For example, how people look at you, how people think of you, trying to be as cool as all your friends or whatever, or as cool as the people on Instagram and stuff. That's something that I've noticed more and more. I actually deleted Instagram for the time being, just the app, because I noticed that the more I'm looking at Instagram, whether it's in dance or like, for example, for dance, sometimes I look at a lot of people doing dance videos and I just think to myself, I'm never going to be that good. Why should I bother? And I get really depressed for that. Another thing is I look at people and I look at what they're sharing or what they have and stuff. And it's so easy, even though you know intellectually that comparing is bad, it's human nature. It's very easy to compare. And I do it all the time. I look at people and I'm like, oh, I wish I had that. I wish I had this. I wish I had that. And whether it's like maybe their body, maybe it's something they have, maybe the experiences. For me, it's a lot of, travel, like whenever people are traveling and stuff. And at the end of it, it's just, it doesn't do anything to you. Feeling good or feeling bad about all this stuff, it doesn't make your life any better. It's just a form of, it's empty. And so that's something that I've noticed for myself. So maybe if you're feeling like that too, I don't know, maybe try deleting some of your social media. I'm trying my best just to use social media now for talking to my friends. Of course, I'll go back to creating and making like dance videos and stuff. But in my day-to-day life, I try not to. I'm going to try not to use social media as much. We'll see. Maybe it'll change, but something to keep in mind. The second thing I want to talk about today is this idea from Fred VanVleet. He's a player for the NBA team, the Toronto Raptors, and he always says, bet on yourself. And actually, I was reading about it, and it turned out it's from one of his agents. When he first started undrafted, nobody thought he would make it into the NBA, and his agent told him, bet on yourself, believe in yourself. But here's the thing. I love this saying because I think it's a little better than believe in yourself. Believe in yourself is just thinking, right? Inspiration without action, in my opinion, is just mental masturbation. It doesn't get you anywhere. It makes you feel good, but if you don't do anything with that good feeling, you end up with nothing. So oftentimes, maybe this happens in your life. You read a book, you watch a movie, or you watch a YouTube video or something inspirational on Instagram, and you feel great. And then you don't do anything, and then the next day you just feel bad because now you said I'm going to change my life, and then you didn't do anything, and now you're like, oh, I'm a liar. So bet on yourself. What that means is not just to believe in yourself, but believe and then act. Act upon it. So it goes back to the saying, I love the saying from a friend of mine. Her name is Gabriella, and she competed for Canada in the Olympics. And I asked her, like, what's her favorite, like, how does she get through the training and everything? Like, what keeps her focused? Is there any sort of words that keep her focused? And she would say to me, and I think I've said this before, but she would say always, train like you've never won, race like you've never lost. And so betting on yourself is this concept of inside, you know that you have the potential to do it, the potential to be the very best, but on the outside, you stay humble. You don't need to show off. There's no point in that. So it's this balance. And I think that, as I'm growing older, that balance is so useful. I've swung between points where I really was super cocky and arrogant, and points where I really hated myself, like really didn't think I could do anything. And when I'm happiest is usually, and when my life is the best is usually when I'm in the middle. And so I'll talk about something. So here's something from Fred Van Vleet. I'm just going to read some of his words. He says on his website, only you know what you're really worth. Work on your craft. Put in the time. Take control of your destiny. So the important thing about this concept of betting on yourself, it doesn't mean that you are the only one who does it. In reality, every time we do something, we often forget the luck that's in play, the friends that help us, the environment that helps us. We often forget of all these things that give us an advantage. For example, I live in Canada, and there are certain things here. It's not perfect, but there are certain things here I don't have to worry about every day. For example, most of the time, I don't have to worry that if I go to the ATM machine, I'm not going to be able to get money. But in some countries, in some places in the world, that's a very real concern. Maybe you go to the ATM and you cannot withdraw money. Very small thing, but it gives me peace of mind. And that's an advantage. I'm here. For my education system, I went to University of Toronto, one of the top, like a few, I don't know what, top 30 maybe, top 30. I don't know, top 20 maybe, top 30. Well, one of the quote unquote top universities in the world, but I didn't pay that much relative to my neighbors in the United States or in the UK because I just didn't pay that much. So yeah, it's pretty good. And so Fred Van Vleet, he talks about 3 concepts in Bet on Yourself. And I want to give these to you. I want this to hopefully be something that powers you this week. The first one is work it to the bone. I love that he mentions this first, which is when you're betting on yourself, it means believe in yourself, believe in your potential, believe in your capability, but you need to work. You need to put in those hours. You need to put in the actual, like, what are you doing every day? Put in the workout, shoot the shot, whatever it is. And that's something really important to keep in mind. But at the same time, stay grateful and humble. Gratitude, I've talked about this before, is, in my opinion, one of the greatest superpowers ever. One thing I want to try to do more in 2021 is to meditate more, because I find that when I'm not in a state of gratitude, when I'm not counting my blessings, it's very easy to get depressed. It's very easy to get sad and angry. I don't like COVID-19, blah, 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 blah. But when you count your blessings, right now I'm inside. Earlier, like a few minutes ago, I was outside and it was so windy, and now I'm inside. I have a safe place. I have this beautiful mug. I have a nice hat, simple things. And I get to talk to you. So blessings. And humble. Humble is really important because there's, the greatest flex is not flexing at all. These are ideas that are very, very prominent in Taoism, for example, and Zen Buddhism. But the real person who's confident, the real person who is great, doesn't need to tell anyone else that they're great. Other people might tell them, but it's not their place to say, I'm the best. So yeah, that's the second part. And the last part, yes, bet on yourself. So when all things are said and done, betting on yourself just means, it doesn't mean you're going to succeed. It means that you believe you have the capability to succeed. I want to end with this because I've been struggling with this my entire life, which is for most of my life, I never believed in myself. Every time I made something, I would think, no one's going to listen, or I would write something, no one's going to read. And now I think about it, I don't know. It's not up to me to decide that. It's up to you, actually. And so one thing that I've realized is, if you don't bet on yourself, no one will. If you don't believe in what you can do, why should anybody believe in you? Why would anybody do the same? And think about it in terms of, like, look at your friend, or look at like a company, right? If you're investing in a company and they said, we don't think we're that great, we don't think we're going to be able to be a good company, you're probably not going to invest, even if you really like them. Because if they don't believe in themselves, then, and they're the ones who made the company, they're the ones who are the company, then why should investors believe in them? So this is a concept. I'm going to try my best to embody this, and I encourage you to think the same, which is, when you think about your own life, whether it is something you can or cannot do, remember that betting on yourself is free. You don't need anybody to tell you you're good. You don't need anybody to tell you you're bad. You know if you're good or bad. And if you are bad, great. That means that you have a lot of room to improve. If you're good, great. That means you have a lot of room to improve. At the end of the day, we're still going to work. Without work, like I said, it's just mental masturbation. You're just sitting at home daydreaming. But when you work with the belief, then you can get somewhere. I really believe this I'm really starting to believe this now, because before I would just work, but with no belief. And whenever that happens, I end up just getting so burnt out because I would think this is useless. And every day it's just very negative. I've also done the thing where I just believed without work, the whole law of attraction stuff. And I would just ended up sitting at home doing nothing, like a blob. So now it's the balance of the two. And so I'm going to try to do this. I encourage you to try to do the same. So please, everyone, remember, value is arbitrary, so you're worth it. Now, if you believe you're worth it, work so that you can prove that worth. And at the end of it, you're not proving it to anybody else. Remember, its value is arbitrary. Vincent van Gogh, when he died, his art, he died very poor. And now we think that his art is great. But maybe in a few hundred years, we're going to think it's terrible. I don't know. So this is something that's really, really important. If you always let other people decide how much you're worth, you are going to be like a leaf in the wind. Phew, phew, phew. And so bet on yourself, believe in yourself. I hope everyone has a great weekend and a great week, and I'll see you next time. That's JJ out.